welcome to the Inspire Collective podcast. My name is Mike Kai, the co-founder of the Inspire Collective with Martijn van Tilburg and Dr. Sam Chan. We talk to world-class leaders in every sphere of society, from business to sports to politics to entertainment and even in the ministry. So be sure to hit the subscribe button now so you don't miss an episode.
Well, I want to welcome my good friend Mike Woods to the podcast. Mike, welcome. How you doing?
I am awesome, brother. How are you?
I'm great. Well, it's nice and warm and humid here in Orlando, Florida, where I'm at for a few days. And tell us where you're at.
I'm actually in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex in a suburb called Keller.
So, Mike, how long have you been in Dallas?
And that's a whole God story, bro. And I told you a little bit about it over lunch.
Tell 'em. Yeah.
Well, we were living on Oahu, living the life, big, huge mansion up on the top of the ridge overlooking the Pacific Ocean. I mean, Jeff Long Architects, for anybody who's on the islands, they know he's like a world-class architect. He designed our home and we read a book called The Dream Giver. And there's this talks about Mr. and Mrs. Ordinary living in the land of familiar. And, you can be familiar at a lot of different economic levels, right? And so my wife and I, we had 7 beautiful kids. We were homeschooling. We had it all going on. And I read that book and I thought, you know what? I'm 42 years old. Is this it for life? Is this what I do for the rest of the rest of my life? And it was just a resounding no. I mean, no, you don't just stop. And so I thought, you know what? If I were to relocate, and we love Hawaii, we love, my wife's local. We love everything about it. But if we were to relocate, where would I go? And being pragmatic and a business guy, I said, well, I'd like a tax-free state. I want a good airport, good infrastructure. I want it centrally located because we were so far out in the west that if you want to see the Liberty Bell, it's a big, you're in Orlando, brother. It's a lot of time zones. It's a big hassle to get there. So I said, I want centrally located, So I started doing this homework and I don't want to be in Wyoming, tax-free, but there's no people. I don't want to be in Nevada, tax-free, but there's all kind of gambling and wickedness. And so I kind of went Texas, and I started looking at houses. This is all on my own, okay? And I boiled it down to Dallas, Fort Worth, or Houston. Well, we took a trip to Atlantis in Bahamas, and there was my wife and I, 7 kids and a nanny. So there's 10 of us. Going from Honolulu to, it's like a military campaign with checkboards, clipboards and checklists. And it's onerous, man. It takes 26 hours to get there. And we're flying back. And my wife goes, we're sitting up in first class and the kids are in the back with the nanny. And she goes,
where they belong.
Yeah, absolutely. You haven't earned first class. I have.
Yes.
She goes to me, Mike, do you ever think about living on the mainland? I said, yeah, I'm open to that. She goes, what do you think about Texas? Like maybe Dallas, Fort Worth, or Houston? She knew nothing about the stuff that I had done. And so we just took that as confirmation from the Lord. It's like, that's impossible. That was the end of February. In April, we were in Texas looking at houses. So next adventure, right?
Wow. And how long has it been? 14 years now?
That was in 2004. So 18 years. Crazy.
18 years.
Yeah. And we might end up back in Oahu. Who knows, right? Whatever the Lord says, we'll do it, right?
At the end of the day, that's what it is.
Amen.
And so I remember meeting you over 30 years ago and then hadn't seen you for the last 20 years or more.
Yeah.
And I'm preaching on a September or in August in 2021. And I just see this guy sitting on the ground, on the floor seating, and smiling, and seems like he's digging what I'm speaking on. I was doing my series. I was doing my series called The Way Back, and how far we've fallen as far as the country goes, and how do we find our way back? We got to know where we came from in order to find our way back. And I'm seeing this guy, and at the end, I said, I hope I see him after service, because when I walk off that stage, I'm probably going to get hit with 2 or 3 people who want to say hi. That's the way it is, because I don't walk off the stage and go upstairs. I try to make my way to the front door, and then here's this guy, and immediately, as soon as he gets closer, I'm like, my God, it's Mike Woods. And what a reunion.
Yeah.
What a beautiful day that was when we
saw each other again. About it, brother.
That's awesome. That is so God. So for everybody who's listening on the podcast or who's watching right now, I knew Mike is a very successful businessman. Right. And so when I had my own entrepreneurial background, and that's why I still have the 7 mountains, gates mentality when it comes to the Inspire Collective, part of Inspire Church, to shoot, kind of like an overflow out of that. Everybody, here's what happens. Whenever you have that entrepreneurial gift and spirit that is in you, no matter what, sometimes you're not going to be able to shake it. You're going to come full circle back to it. So I was raised up in a family where my dad was a police officer, but he always had these dreams and these goals. He wanted to open a shoe store because we didn't have good athletic footwear on the Big Island in Hawaii in the 80s, but that didn't work out. He wanted to run for city council. My mom told him no. I'm kind of glad she did. My dad had a Hawaiian products food company. He opened up a security guard firm that became the largest in 5 years. He was kind of like a serial entrepreneur. I was shocked how many businesses my dad had started. And probably the one that was the most successful was a security guard business. But then he kind of got pushed out by his partner, and that didn't work out. But God works out all things, Romans 8:28. That led them to go to Portland, Oregon. And my dad gave his life to Jesus right before that. So that's the silver lining in a dark cloud. Sure. But knowing Mike and myself and the reconnection with that, and then Mike and I talk about what's going on in his life. Mike, take it from there.
Yeah, which is, first of all, let me just edify you to the people of your church.
Oh, man.
Because I was sitting in that, and I knew you from business, and we had a friendship, but I hadn't seen you in 20 years, and I'd never seen you preach. And I'm listening to you were talking about the history of revival in Hawaii, and it was so inspired, but it was such brilliant analysis. And then we sat and had lunch, and you were telling me about your preparedness for the pandemic and what you're doing for the people and what you're doing for the church. And they probably don't have a clue of the stuff that you were thinking and preparing, but I'm going, oh, and then you're talking to me about the sanctuary you're building and how you're taking advantage of the trade winds and how you're taking advantage of multi-use things. And you're going to be able to do wedding chapel. And then you can actually do volleyball. And I'm going, well, who thought that up? Who took advantage of all that? The wind and the trades, the architect. And he said, well, and you were very humble, but he said, well, no, I'm actually kind of teaching him about it. It was my idea, and he has to kind of think. And I'm going, this guy's a genius. Like, this guy is so bright.
Oh, man.
And I mean, look, my background is my father is a genius. Okay. He's a university president. He's a philosopher. He's considered to be one of the best logicians in the world. He's got an IQ of like 185. So all my life, I grew up around all these smart people. And we think smart has to do with education and degrees. No, it doesn't. That's my whole world growing up. In fact, Albert Einstein said, the single greatest hindrance to my learning is my education, right? So anyway, your people are blessed to have a pastor like you who's spiritually sensitive, knowledgeable in the word, has a great heart, but also has a great mind, because it leads to opportunities like this, right? Where truth can come
Thanks,
up.
Mike.
Yeah, it's just Mike. My heart, bro. I
appreciate it.
Yep. But we ran into each other, and as somebody will say, very casually, he said, so what are you up to? And I kind of went, well, this is going to sound crazy, but I figured out a cure for heart disease. And you're like, wow. What? And I'm like, no, I have to say on this podcast, because I've now started an entrepreneurial venture, I cannot say that I figured out a cure for heart disease because it's against FDA rules. Okay. The Food and Drug Administration has very strict rules about what you can say about supplements and what you can't say about supplements. But you and I kind of connected on this level of looking at what's going on with the pandemic and looking at what's going on with all of these institutions. I was just telling DJ before the podcast, I mean, I've got an article. This is from Forbes magazine. 75% of the FDA's budget comes from drug companies.
Wow.
Okay, so these are the policemen that are overseeing drug trials. And those drug trials, 75% of them are funded by the drug companies. You're like, wow. Right? All during this pandemic, we're seeing all these talking heads, these doctors from the National Institute of Health and blah, blah, blah. And they change their mind every 5 minutes, right? So you can't believe in what they're saying. And then we find out they're getting royalties from the drug companies. $500 million. So anyway, obviously you were intrigued.
I'm interested. I'm interested in heart disease. I'm interested in vascular health. I'm interested in blood flow. If you know what I'm talking about. I mean,
absolutely.
I'm interested in all of it because I mean, even though I don't feel like I'm in my 50s, I'm in my mid 50s. I'm 54 years old. I don't like to tell people that too often because I want to keep people guessing as long as I can. But I'm telling you, Mike, like I want to make sure that my arteries are clear. I've adjusted my health, everything short of probably going vegan. I mean, but I ain't going vegan. I ain't going vegan. I love Jesus too much. I'm not switching religions. I'm not switching religions. I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding about the vegan thing, everybody. I'm not going vegan, but I definitely eat a whole lot healthier. But I also know that with stress can cause high cholesterol. And then I was even wondering about the numbers. How clear are the numbers when it comes to measuring cholesterol? And so when you talked to me about it, I just went whoop, and I became a customer and started telling a lot of people about it. And I want to tell a whole lot more people about it. So tell us about it.
Yeah. Well, see, to me, there's just my highest value is truth, period. Okay. And what's the opposite of truth? Lies. Well, who's the father of all lies, right? So I'm just not a big fan of deception, right?
Right.
And who's the way, the truth, and the life? I mean, we know, right? So my highest value is truth. So my background medically is I have a horrible history for heart disease. On my mom's side, my grandfather died when he was 43, dropped dead of a heart attack right in front of her. She was 14 years old. On my dad's side, my grandfather died of his third heart attack. Obviously the final one, he's dead, 72 years old. My dad has already died once and the paramedics brought him back. My mom, my dad, they're on cholesterol meds, they're on high blood pressure meds, they're all handfuls of drugs. Well, since we've known each other 30 years, I've always been interested in organic health or nutritional supplements, alternatives, and I've always studied it and always been interested. So for 30 years, I took organic supplements. I took omega-3 fish oils. I took garlic supplements. I took CoQ10. All these things are good for the heart, good for the cardiovascular system. And I also read it got a heck of a lot easier with the internet, man. And some people use the internet to watch cat videos. I used it to make myself smarter. You know,
yeah.
And
Me
so
too,
I learned,
man.
Amen, right? And I learned about cholesterol. And you know, there's this war on cholesterol. Now, let me first say, statin drugs are a $1 trillion industry. They've sold over $1 trillion worth of statin drugs, which are to lower your cholesterol. But you go right on any of the sites, go to Harvard Med School. 50% of the people that have heart attacks have elevated cholesterol. 50% of the people that have heart attacks have normal cholesterol. So what does that tell us? Absolutely nothing. Like it's meaningless, right?
They're giving us the wrong drugs.
Yeah.
I was on Lipitor. And then I started reading about how bad it is for, I think, your kidneys and your liver.
Your liver. It's it's a hepatitic toxin, man. It's toxic to your liver. A muscle aches.
And not only muscle aches, muscle atrophy.
Absolutely.
All of that too. And I figured this out 10 years ago. I'm stopping. I'm not taking it anymore. I will roll the dice. I will eat more salad. I'll run farther. And then I got into more natural supplements. Yeah. Because my sister-in-law, my brother's wife, has been so into it for 25 years. We finally decided that we would listen because I didn't want to take the drugs anymore. It changed my life. But then now I know something that what you're sharing is this powerful.
I've always had elevated cholesterol. And thank God I have a doctor out here in Dallas. He doesn't take insurance. He's a boutique guy. He charges a lot of money, but he's open to different things. He's not just so dogmatic. He's still a fully licensed physician. But he said, you know, Mike, your cholesterol is a little bit elevated. And I said, yeah. Then ask me if I care, because I don't care. Because I've read the studies, I've read the literature. Man, I know if I didn't have cholesterol, I'd be dead in 1 second. It's essential for life. My body produces cholesterol. That's how important it is. It doesn't just come from eggs and bacon. My body makes it. So don't even talk to me about Lipitor, because like you, I will never take it. Never. Okay. And he's like, okay. But I've always had slightly elevated cholesterol. I also had a DNA test. I have a thing called an IL-1 gene, which means I'm chronically inflamed. I'm very predisposed to be inflamed, which if you're learning now is really, really bad, because inflammation is
not good.
And that's where all this disease starts. So anyway, this is going back and forth. And I was always concerned. I was never concerned about cholesterol, but I was concerned about heart disease because I had all this history and all this stuff. And I wonder if there's a test that I can take to actually find out my arteries. How are my arteries doing? Aside from like putting a camera up my femoral artery or whatever, it's just something simple.
Right.
In my research, I learned of a thing called the coronary artery calcium test. And they come up with a score, and it's a CAT scan. It takes like less than 30 seconds. And you just lay in the CAT scan machine, and they take some pictures of your heart, and they determine if you have calcium deposits. Well, calcium deposits stick to plaque, okay? And they come up with a score, and I said, oh my God, that's the thing I should do. And Mike, I hauled off and did nothing because I was afraid to find out the truth, human nature, right?
Yeah.
And so I should get one of those tests. Oh, I don't know. I'm afraid to find out. You can call it Google's algorithms, or you can call it the Lord. All I can tell you is that I got an email into my email from Groupon. Coupon.
Groupon. Yeah.
Groupon. Coronary artery calcium score, $50. Right here at a cardiologist center in Texas. I'm like,
wow,
$50, $49.95. I said, okay, I got the Groupon. I went and got the test from this cardiologist. I got the results right here. And it said that I was 56 at the time. And it says, yeah, you got heart disease, bro. And you're in between the 50 and 75 percentile, meaning that you're worse than most.
Wow.
And remember, I taken organic supplements. I took fish oil. I worked out. I did everything. I'm like, man.
And beast mode too. Mm-hmm. When you work out, you go beast mode on your workout. Not casual, not like walking on an elliptical.
Like, my heart rate, it's regularly, like I posted one on my Facebook thing a while ago. The heart rate range for my Apple Watch was 46 to 170, right? 46 resting, 170 in beast mode in the gym, right? Going after it.
But 46 is really good.
It's phenomenal, right?
That's phenomenal.
I'm a big dude. I weigh 250 pounds. I got a lot of muscle. I train weights heavy. Yep. So you would think my heart rate would be way up. Anyway, so I got this test, and I'm like, oh, shoots, man. And I human nature, I was depressed and bummed out, but I don't take it as final. Okay, what's the solution? What do we do? And I'd done enough reading that I just kept reading and researching, and I started discovering these different natural things. There was an enzyme called serrapeptase, and it came out of the University of Chicago in the 80s. I mean, it's not some weird wacko thing. University of Chicago, man, one of the top schools in the world. And it turns out it's what's called a fibrolytic enzyme. They isolated it out from silkworms. And silkworms, the little worm goes in, spins that cocoon of silk, and silk is super strong, bro. I mean, it's like they say tensile strength is stronger than steel. So how does this little butterfly get out of this steel cocoon? It ejects this enzyme that dissolves that silk cocoon so the butterfly can go out. And they found that enzyme is what's called fibrolytic. It dissolves proteins, certain kinds of proteins like that are in that cocoon. And they found in clinical tests, this thing dissolves plaques, like in your heart. I'm like,
that's incredible.
Yeah, I was like, wow. I found this other one, local boy in Hawaii from natto kinase. And we all know natto is fermented soybeans, and it smells pretty nasty.
It smells bad, but it's an acquired taste. And I started eating it the more often I started going to Japan. But now that I go to Japan, I'd rarely eat it, but I get it from a Japanese.
For sure. And you can acquire the taste, but it's nowhere in the Western world, right? And what do they find? The nation with the lowest cardiovascular disease in the world is Japan, where they eat all this natto. What they found in this natto, there's an enzyme called natto kinase. And this enzyme, same thing, it dissolves plaques. And I mean, there's proof. I mean, look at this one. There's this study here. This was a 26-week study. It dissolved arterial plaques 37% in 26 weeks. That's 6 months. And a third of these plaques were gone. I'm like, why is this?
I bet you everybody that is listening to this right now, either themselves or a loved one, family or friends or a loved one, has high cholesterol. They're worried about it. Yep. They've got vascular problems. They've got diabetes and all of the things that local people normally get in Hawaii because of diet, climate, whatever it is. I bet you right now, they're all going like, come on, tell me more.
Absolutely. I hope
whatever you're saying, you're talking about serrapeptase, right? Serrapeptase or
serrapeptase,
nattokinase. And that enzyme blend is the one that I take at night, right? Before I go to bed.
Yes, sir.
Is that I'm taking 2? Is 2 okay, or should I only be taking 1?
What I do is I take 1 in the morning, first thing, and I take 1 at night. But if you're taking 2 at night, ain't it great?
Oh, no, I'll switch it. I'll switch it up.
Doesn't matter. Well, I do both
Okay.
because I want it like an antibiotic. I want it to be at a steady level in my bloodstream. So I do 1 in the morning, first thing. I got a bottle right on my bathroom counter. And the first thing I do is I pop one of those things before I even brush my teeth. Right. So it's in there on an empty stomach and it gets absorbed. Now, our product is in a delayed release capsule. So it's designed to bypass your stomach. So, so it's not going to go into effect in your stomach, but still, just better yet, I don't want any food in my stomach. I want to go in. Anyway, I started reading this stuff. Then I'm reading about vitamin D3 and K2. That stuff came out of osteoporosis in postmenopausal women. We saw these postmenopausal women, they're falling down, breaking their hip. I'm like, what's up with that? Well, they're all depleted of calcium. Okay, so they start giving them calcium supplements. And you know what they get? Kidney stones, gallstones, arteriosclerosis. The calcium's going to their soft tissue, but it's not going to their bones. And they're like, why is that? And they started finding out because people are deficient of vitamin D3 and they're deficient of vitamin K2. D3, Hawaii, right? But everybody's putting sunscreen on. You see some of the ladies, they'll have a sleeve on their arm so their arm doesn't get tanned from the sun as they're driving.
Right.
A hat because people are freaked out about the sun. Well, naturally, sunshine gives us D3. And then vitamin K2 comes from grass-fed meat, especially the organ meat, livers and kidneys and all. Well, people don't eat that. When was the last time you had liver? Never.
When my mom made us eat it?
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, we ate liver and onions. I don't know who would feed their kids a filter of an animal. What the heck? Sorry. I mean,
but it's loaded with vitamin K2. And then
iron.
Vegetable,
and iron.
Kale and, the broccoli and all that. Anyway, it's so depleted the farming practices that people aren't getting these things. So anyway, I'm reading all this stuff and I came up with this protocol. I found these 2 enzymes, serrapeptase, nattokinase, vitamin D3, vitamin K2. And I said, okay, I'm going to go on a regimen and I'm going to take these for a year. I mean, it took me 56 years to create these deposits. They're not going to go away in 5 minutes. So I'm going to give it a year. I'm going to take these enzymes. All these studies say that they reduce plaques. I'm going to see if it works for me. A year later, we're actually we're on Oahu at our year anniversary of this protocol. And that's when COVID hit. And we were there literally. We're at the beach. We're in Waikiki. We're having fun. And then the next day, everything's shut down. Waikiki's shut down. It's all boarded up. It was like surreal, right? So we get back to Dallas and I couldn't get the test done because everything shut down and all that kind of thing. So it was probably closer to about 18 months. I was at my doctor's office and I had a blood test. And he goes, Mike, I got to talk to you about your cholesterol. And it turns out he has to. He is legally required. It's called acceptable standards or common standards of practice. That if he doesn't show in my notes that he recommended Lipitor to me, he can lose his license.
Wow.
Right? So he has to recommend Lipitor. And so anyway, he said, I want you to go get this thing called a coronary artery calcium test. He didn't know that I'd already had one. And I said, oh, yeah, I heard about those things. I'd be very interested to get that test. I go get the test. The next day, I get a text from him. Bro, I don't know about you. You're an important man. My doctor does not text me. His assistant, maybe, the receptionist. The doctor doesn't send me a text. I got a text from him. He's going, Mike, I just got your coronary artery calcium score back. It's perfect. It's like 0. And here's the test. Like there's quote unquote, no evidence of coronary artery disease. And he's like, and he didn't know that I had it before. So he just thought, man, you're really healthy. This is super cool. Way to go. I said, bro, you think that's cool? Let me show you my first test from like 18 months ago. He goes, can you send that to me? I go, yeah, I'll send you the file right now. And this goes back and forth through text a little bit. Then it goes into the phone call. He's like, Mike, his words, not mine. He goes, this is a miracle. I've never seen this in 30 years of being a doctor. This is impossible. Like, how did you do this? So I told him the story. Then I sent him my files and I sent him all my research. And he's a smart guy. And he starts reading it. And he's like, this is all making sense. Like everything that you're talking about and everything that these studies say, he goes, it's not just coronary artery disease, it's strokes. He goes, do you know what they're finding out about Alzheimer's disease? Bro, this one right here. This is a study that these 2 enzymes dissolved amyloid plaques. Amyloid plaques are the plaques in Alzheimer's disease.
Really?
So these enzymes are, the plaques are gone. They're just all eaten up. And so anyway, he looked at this and he's like, this is unbelievable. And then he confides in me. He goes, Mike, you don't know this, but I had horrible heart disease. My father died of a heart attack. My brother has it. I have it. He goes, my coronary artery calcium score is 800, which is really bad. Like and he's a Christian brother and he's a good man, but he just knows he ain't going to live till he's 90. He just knows I'm going to die early and I'm going to die of a heart attack. So I'll just live my life as best I can until that. Then this comes along. So he goes on my protocol and he starts taking the enzymes, starts taking the vitamins. And I said, remember, you got to do it and don't do it for a week and see how you feel. You're not going to feel anything. You don't feel like you got heart disease, but you do. Well, you're not going to feel like it's going away. So just stick with the protocol. Have faith. He phoned me. I was driving on my way to the gym. My cell phone rings, my doctor. He hadn't even told his wife yet. He goes, Mike, I just got my test results back. I go, so? He goes, I'm cured. I have no heart disease, bro. Wow. He goes, in 12 months, my coronary artery calcium score went from 800 down to 200.
That's
but
incredible.
Way more important than that is I had an angiogram as well where they actually inject dye and they look and he goes, I have no plaques in my heart arteries. None.
See, everybody, this is why this podcast is so important. So important. Usually the products that we push or we offer to you is either a book, it's going to be a master class, it's going to be an audiobook, it's going to be a conference. But this is probably the first time I can ever remember that has something to do with about not your mental health, but your physical health. Yep. So this is really, really, really important. Mike, sorry for the plug, but keep on going, man.
It's true, bro. And talking about your mental health, for goodness sakes, Alzheimer's. I mean, let's look at the big, huge things that we're dealing with. We're dealing with cardiovascular disease, stroke, Alzheimer's, diabetes, cancer. All of those are metabolic diseases. You don't catch diabetes. It's not an infection, right? You don't catch cancer through a virus. It's our bodies reacting to all of these things, all of these toxins and chemicals. And here's what everybody needs to understand, okay? Very, very simplistically about how do these plaques form, okay? The first component is inflammation. Our arteries get inflamed by something. Well, what? It could be toxins in the water. It could be toxins in the air. It could be toxins in the food, chemicals. Golly, man, Roundup, whatever, right, bro?
Yep.
It's everywhere. And we're not meant to, we can handle a little bit, but we're getting it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. So when there's inflammation in your arteries, your body goes, well, we need to heal this. And so it releases this thing called cholesterol. And think about, you got a dent in your wall and it's like spackle and it'll fill that puka, it'll fill that hole. And
automatic.
Over. Yeah, automatic, all through the blood flow. And so it kind of gives it a coating of cholesterol to kind of smooth it over. And then it creates a fibrin mesh. And fibrin is this strong protein. Kind of think of like rebar in a concrete wall. It's all of this mesh-like structure. As a scab forms over, there's substance to it. Well, that happens inside our bodies too. So we get cholesterol and we get fibrin. And guess what? If that was only one-time inflammation and that would go away and we'd be healed. But it's chronic. And because it's there over and over and over, cholesterol is a very sticky, waxy fat. So calcium starts to build up in it. And that's where we get hardening of the arteries, arterial sclerosis. And that calcium builds up. And I've talked to doctors, I've talked to cardiologists, guys that have done, work on cadavers and stuff. And they say, you cannot believe these arteries. They're like literally like concrete. They're so hard, man. Because it's concrete built up in them. Yeah. So one of the big things people got to understand is about each one of these components individually is a very, very strong anti-inflammatory. So the first thing they do is they stop our body from being inflamed all the time. Well, I got the IL-1 gene. I'm chronically inflamed. So, man, that's good news for me. But it's good news for everybody because you don't want your body consistently inflamed. Just kind of as a little sideline, I work out beast mode, man. I'm going after it. And I've trained like an animal, an hour a day, hour, 15 minutes a day. Just to the wall, 5 days a week for 8 years without a break. That's just nonstop. Well, I'm always got something sore, always something torn up. Everything. That's just normal, right? If you ain't sore, you didn't work out, right?
Yeah.
So we all have arrogance, bro, and I don't give
No,
myself.
that's the truth,
Right?
though. That's the
It's
truth, man.
right? But anyway, I started taking these supplements. I started taking these enzymes, and it never dawned on me. But probably 3 months later, and I work out with my sons. I have 6 sons, and so we'll go beast mode in the gym.
Goodness.
And I was saying to my boys, I go, you know what, boys? It's really weird, but I don't get sore anymore. I mean, you know how hard I go. I haven't eased up anything, but I just don't have those aches and pains. Maybe I'm finally old enough that I've just reached fitness. I don't know.
Have I hit the pinnacle of fitness?
Yes, I have
the Valhalla of fitness.
I'm the modern day Thor. And then it dawned on me, I'm taking these enzymes. And these enzymes, I mean, there's clinical studies in Europe and in Asia. They'll use them in tendon repair surgery for torn tendons, Achilles tendon, and they'll give them serapeptase instead of drugs. And it'll reduce the inflammation, and therefore it'll reduce the pain. Because there's no inflammation, there's no pain. And I mean, they use it for a wisdom teeth surgery. It's prescribed in Europe. No negative side effects. It's not a drug. It's a natural enzyme that your body.
That's incredible.
It's incredible. And so that was one of the benefits for me. It's like, I'm not sore anymore. My daughter, she's very, techie and does all this stuff on the keyboard. She has carpal tunnel syndrome. She goes, Dad, I take those enzymes. My wrists don't hurt. It's just unbelievable, right? So there's all these kind of little ancillary benefits, but everybody needs to know, it is my contention, because people say, well, I don't have heart disease. Do you deal with inflammation? Do you deal with anything? I mean, let's get real. I really believe, now I'm biased, but I really believe everybody should be doing this preventatively. What do you want to wait till you have plaques? Why not just keep everything clean and flowing and,
get it done now. Don't wait.
Yeah. Why wait? And they're all strong anti-inflammatories. And then these things have been proven. I mean, all of the articles, well, not all of them, because people could be reading for months, but lots and lots of studies and articles are on the webpage. They're all listed there. And what blows my mind, Mike, is that you and I are different, bro. Because obviously you like to learn things. So you like to learn about them and study them. We're on this webinar together. You know what blows my mind? Because I can't track who they are, but I can track web addresses to see who actually spends any time at any of these different sections. And it just blows my mind that people aren't interested in learning about how their body works. They'll click on the site, they'll be there for 10 seconds, and they're gone.
Your website.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's okay. I mean, I'm not anybody's judge, but if I had heart disease and I really, really I wasn't going to abdicate it all to my doctor. Oh, whatever my doctor says. And look, I'm not slamming doctors and I'm not putting them down.
Right. No.
Right.
Yeah.
But they're restricted in what they can do.
I think we learned in the last 2 years that we have to do our own homework.
Yep. We have
and to. It supplements what our primary care physician is doing. It'll help supplement what they're doing. And Absolutely. So I think I learned that this year that, I have much respect for my doctors, so much respect. And my friends who are doctors, so much respect. Yet at the same time, I got to take my health into my own hands too. And I think they would appreciate that as well. That, hey, good for you, man. You're doing that. Keep going. Sorry.
If they don't, that's a red flag, in my opinion.
Oh, if they don't,
If your doctor has arrogance for you studying and learning and growing things, in my opinion, you got the wrong doctor, right?
True.
Because you ask them, well, how many classes in nutrition did you have in med school? Maybe one for one. I mean, they just don't learn these things. How much did you learn alternative therapies in med school?
Right, exactly. But I also think, I'm not sure if it's a profession that needs recertification or not. But I wonder how many of them, not talking about my friends, but worldwide or in America, are actually getting continuous education. Not just reading a journal. I don't want to get myself into trouble, but not just reading a medical journal that sits on your coffee table and you are way too busy to study anyway. They're way too busy.
Absolutely.
Their medical insurance that they've got to pay, malpractice insurance that they've got to pay, all of this, and then have a family. I don't know when they have time to read. If they do, good for them. But when do they get a class that'll help? Hey, we've been wrong all this time, and here's the right solution, or here's another practice.
Yep.
Anyway, I don't want to.
No, but bro, it's all about perspective and worldview, and who funds the medical schools? The drug companies. So their whole perspective is identify the disease. Here's the pill for it. That's everybody they know. That's their certification.
They're pilling America to death. They're
Absolutely.
pilling America.
It's sickening, right?
Big pharma is big. They're pilling us to death. We're gonna get diseases and cancers and whatever off of the medications.
It makes me so mad. Type 2 diabetes. I mean, there should be no people with type 2 diabetes. It is so treatable and curable just with dietary changes. Cancer, there's so much evidence. There's a guy named Otto Warburg who won the Nobel Prize in Medicine in the 1930s for his research on cancer. And the only thing he talked about was a ketogenic diet. Just not because cancer cells thrive off of glucose and you cut down the sugar. And not all of them, but there's a huge number of cancers that you just starve them to death by not giving them sugar. That was in the 1930s. He won the Nobel Prize for medicine. And all of a sudden, we're getting chemotherapy. And I mean, it's just like, it's a huge industry, bro. And we all know that, right? And so,
what's this guy's name? What was that guy's name?
Otto Warburg.
Otto Warburg.
Yeah, and he's a German physician, and he was studying it all. And, there's so much. Like, I got this one here. This is another German physician, and he's using serapeptase for stroke victims. And he's like, there's no question it saved their lives. And at the end of it, he goes, unfortunately, Orthodox cardiologists do not employ this important method in their practices. He's going, this is life-saving. I'm reading all this stuff. And again, there's going to be medical professionals watching this. Well, first of all, they got to be the right kind of medical professional to be watching this, because those are the kind we want, right? That are open-minded, and they go, look, I don't know everything. The human body is so complex, right? And they should be wide open to alternatives. But here's the challenge for them, even those kind of guys, is the medical boards that run them, because they have to if they do something outside of the norm, they can lose their medical license. So they're trapped. Crazy. It's so.
So, Mike, what made you decide that I've got to bring this? I have to produce this for more people to be able to take this instead of waiting to the end until they have to go to the doctor and then they implement practices or start taking medicines that actually may not actually help them.
And that is a really simple question, but it was a very, very, very weighty decision, because I'm not stupid and I'm not naive. And you and I have talked about it. Look, when there's an industry that controls the government, it funds the government watchdogs, it funds the education, it funds everything. I mean, this huge multi-trillion-dollar industry, drug industry, and little old Mike is going to come and say, well, I've got this natural thing that's really cool. Let's just say I'm not naive to think that this is going to be open and welcome news, right? Yeah. And quite honestly, I had a lot of conversations with God, and I'm like, Lord, why did you, let this cup pass from me kind of stuff. It's like, why did you give this to me? Why didn't you give it to, like, I don't know, Dr. Oz or I don't know, somebody huge, Joe Rogan or why did you give it to me? Because I'm just this little dude.
Sanjay Gupta from CNN.
Right. Yeah, for sure, bro. And he said, because I know you'll do something with it. And so I said, okay, well, I will. And so my thought was not to just make supplements and make them available. Get the information out. Get the information. Now that it's out, you can't get the genie back in the bottle. And so that was an intentional decision to get it out, get all the studies and all this stuff published. Anybody who wants to learn, they can learn, and just my highest value is truth. And morally, I mean, and I talked to my doc about this, just kind of a moral imperative. Number one killer in the world is heart disease. And, you can talk to your doctor and cardiologist and, they can poo-poo this thing. Oh, that's not going to work. That's witchcraft. That's silly. Okay. All right. But what's your strategy?
Expected.
Or what are you doing to dissolve clots? What are you doing to dissolve plaques? What drug do you have that's in 26 weeks dissolving a third of the plaques? Oh, you don't have one. So you want me to manage the disease.
You want me on a thinner.
Yeah, totally, bro.
Put you on a thinner. Okay. Hey, Mike. So Mike, it even can dissolve the possibility of dissolving a blood clot?
There's all kinds of stuff in these articles.
Okay.
All kinds of stuff in these articles. Like,
because I have a friend
who's a pilot. He had this deep vein thrombosis. This is shown, like, the studies are posted where this is better than the drugs that they have at dissolving the clots.
Wow.
I mean, there's so many different things. You go, this is amazing, man. And again, why isn't this front page news? Because it's not, it's not a drug.
So, Mike, as long as you don't, I know you won't, but we've all heard of companies or different researchers or scientists that have found cures for certain diseases and cancers. And then they get bought out by another company and they shelf it.
Right.
Because they don't want the cure out.
Correct.
And one day somebody's going to come knock on Mike Woods' door and go, hey, Mike, we want to buy that from you. And we better make sure, or don't sell it, or make sure that they don't bury this, because this stuff is too good. This is more than I imagined after you telling me. I've been telling my friends, you got to get it. You got to get it. Yeah. And some of them have, and some of them still dragging their feet, but that's okay. Yeah. But this thing is powerful. So at what point did you go, let's do this?
And sell it?
Let's do it. Not sell it, but to put it on the market.
That was very early. I talked to God and he says, why did I give it to you? Because you'll do something with it. I said, yes, sir. And then I just started moving forward. You're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. I started 37 different companies. I've never done a supplement company, but I can figure it out. Got the right manufacturer with all the right safety, NSF certified, good manufacturing practices, all the right testing, all the right environment, all the sterile rooms. Got the manufacturing done, and I said, okay, we're going to build the website and did all that. So, okay, we're up and running. We're going to do it. To me, and that's a very profound question you have, because we're all altruistic and noble until we get faced with it. Like, what would you do if they offered you $1 billion for your supplement or for your patent or anything? And I'll be very honest, I'd be very tempted to sell it for $1 billion. I'd be very, very tempted, right?
No, all you got to do is put some legal work saying you can't shelf this and take the $1 billion, Mike.
Exactly. And to me, if a drug company is really thinking, don't shelf it, make it, because now you own it. I mean, and you can, it's everywhere in the world, right? But to mitigate that, knowing myself, I said, okay, well, how do I prevent myself from getting swayed? Get the information out, put it out there, right? So now it's out, and it can't be taken back, and nobody can get to me. And just parenthetically, I also told my wife and kids, I go, look, I'm not saying anything, but sometimes bad things happen to these people that come up with these life-changing stuff. Just let you know, I'm not suicidal. I don't have a girlfriend. I'm not a pedophile. I don't have anything funky on my computer. I mean, if something weird happens and dad is dead all of a sudden, it wasn't me, bro. I mean, something's going on.
So, Mike, this sounds so exciting. I'm glad I brought my products with me on my trip. I mean, of course, this is not my house. I'm sitting on a balcony, sweating away in Orlando, Florida. Don't worry, I'm not going to Disney. I'm not going to no theme parks. I can't. I'm over the theme parks.
Amen.
But how can they get this?
The best thing to do is just go on the website, www.for-heartstrong, FORHEARTSTRONG, Heartstrong. And my tests are posted there, the before and after test. There's a whole bunch of videos of me explaining things. There's all kinds of scientific papers and scientific articles, and then you can order it. And then, I mean, we talked about this earlier, Mike, for the folks that are affiliated with you, if they go on and purchase, and look, this sounds so self-serving, but you have to understand, don't just try it. Don't just order it for a month and go, I'll see how I feel. You won't feel anything except maybe a few less aches and pains. You might feel that. You're not going to feel any difference in your heart. The number one sign of heart disease is death. Yeah. People don't know they have a heart disease, they die. Okay. I strongly recommend going on the subscription. Get the bundle. It's not a trick. You can cancel anytime you want. But we've arranged a coupon for your folks, for Inspire, that if they put in the word Inspire at checkout, they get a 10% discount.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we just want to share it with the people that are like-minded and people like us. But I would highly recommend, make a decision in your mind. I'm going to go on this for a year. And, do a test before, do a test after. You can measure things like your blood pressure. There's all kinds of articles that your blood pressure goes down. You can get pictures taken, a CAC score, and you'll see, evidence is like this. Like for me, bro, when I got that second report and my heart disease was gone, I just lost it, man. I just was all in it like a baby. Because you don't know, there's all this weight pressuring on you. And then it's like God just lifts it off. And you got a whole new lease on life. And it's like my doctor too. I was like, when he told me that, again, I'm a crier. I don't mind it, but I'm an emotional dude. And I said, how do you feel? And he's telling me about it. I hung up with him and I just started sobbing before the Lord. I went, thank you, God. I mean, this is a good man, and he's got a wife and he's got children, and he just had grandbabies, and he's vibrant and he's intelligent. Now he's got a whole nother season as a wise, mature man.
Yeah.
But, it's
that's
so
awesome.
Cool, yeah, super
This
cool.
is so awesome. Mike, while I've been here in Orlando, I see it less in Hawaii, but I see it more on the mainland on commercials. They are packaging these supplements for men that I know that suffer from three things. And I remember two of them. I don't remember the third. I know one was from anxiety or depression. And then secondly was from ED. Mm-hmm. And I forget the third one. And there's these 2 or 3 companies that are consistently on ESPN trying to sell these products to cure those 3 major things. And I believe that what you are offering has the potential to do all 3 at one time.
What is blood flow? What is erectile dysfunction? It's clogged micro arteries in your sexual organs, right? It's lack of blood flow. Well, you dissolve the plaques. See, people they think somehow that there's the artery and that it's inside. No, it's in the wall of the artery that where these deposits happen. People need to understand this. Our arteries are muscular. They actually contract all through our body. The arteries contract as well as our heart to help move blood around, right? Well, when those get filled with plaques and they get calcified, stiffening of the arteries, they can't contract anymore. So they're stiff and everything starts breaking down. So it's all about blood flow, blood flow, blood flow. It make a huge difference, So
tell us the website again. The letter 4, FOUR, Heartstrong.
FOR, or actually you can do the number 4, you can do the FOR, you can FOUR, anyways, 4 Heartstrong. HERSTRONG, Heartstrong.
.org.
And like I said, put in Inspire at the checkout because you get a 10%.
Okay. Is it .org or .com?
.com.
.com.
Yep.
4heartstrong.com.
Yep.
Hey, Mike, you know what we'll do is we'll do a follow-up.
Sure.
I checked my cholesterol before I left on this trip, and I think it should be pretty good. My doctor didn't call me back with it. But what I want to do next is that cardiovascular, that test.
Yep.
What do you call it?
It's called a CAC score, coronary artery calcium. And it's really cheap. Just ask your doctor. I want one of these. If ever your doctor's saying, well, I want to put you on the Victoria, you go, whoa. I want a CAC score first. Because if you have no heart disease, why would you go on a cholesterol lowering medication with the muscle aches and muscle atrophy and the liver damage? I mean, it's irrational, man. So
I remember, I'm going to close with this. About 7 years ago, I was with a friend in New Zealand, another pastor, young guy, maybe a little bit older than me. And he was sharing with me about, Mike, ever since I started taking this Lipitor or these statins, and they have, the generic brand too. Mm-hmm. He goes, do you take this? I said, yeah. And he goes, do you take it full strength? I said, no, I only take it in half because I don't know if I trust it. And he goes, ever since I've been taking it, I've gotten skinnier. I actually feel like I've gotten smaller. And you know what? He was right. I didn't have the heart to tell him, yeah, bro, you look like you look like an old man right now. Yeah. I didn't have the heart to tell him. Yeah. And you know what? It's true. Those things may have helped people, but I don't think it helped me. Might have brought down my score, but I think it might have hurt other areas of my body. But all that to say, guys, make sure you get this. Or if you don't, send it to a friend. We're going to definitely put a link on this. You're going to be able to go to the website. You're going to be able to send the link to your friends. your family, and tell them get this. And I highly suggest what he just said. I'm the kind of guy that will buy it when I run out. I don't want to spend money on subscriptions, like even my dog food. I don't want, but I know that here we go again. I'm going to have to wait an extra 6-7 days before I get it again. Or the worst, we just put it on the shelf and we forget all about it. We used it up and we never go back and order it because something happened. We had a bill that came up or whatever. Make sure that you get it. Mike, thank you so much for being on this podcast with us. We really appreciate you, your knowledge, all your research, even your enthusiasm for this and your passion for life.
Thank you, brother. Love you, man.
Love you too. We'll talk soon.
Aloha.